Welcome into the On3 studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, May 19th. It's a big show today. We got lots to talk about. The decommitment of five-star wide receiver Dakorien Moore on Thursday shook the entire recruiting world. The number one wide receiver in America is back on the market before summer recruiting even starts. We're going to cover this major development from all angles today on the Inside Scoop. We'll check in with Shay Dixon of our LSU site. We're going to find out what happened and then what's next for the Tigers. We'll head to Austin and find out if Texas is the favorite. We're going to cover Dakorien Moore top to bottom today. You are going to know everything you need to know. But first, we start the show with my guy, Philip Dukes from the 5-Star Flex. Me and Dukes, we've been covering recruiting all season long on this channel. And we're going to talk about today the 5 things that we learned about recruiting this spring. Philip, I figured, why not? It's a great time. Summer recruiting's about to heat up. You and I, we've been doing this tag team thing on this channel for the last 3 or 4 months. So let's talk 5 things we learned this spring. Now, we're going to go in descending order, and I don't really know if it's in any order. These are just really 5 things that we learned this spring. Let's start with your number 5, and that is Miami really wants to win.
Yeah, I really think that the Hurricanes are in a position to do some really great things. And when you looked at their roster coming into the spring, there weren't a lot of glaring holes. Like there were places that you thought they may have been a little stronger, but I thought they had a top tier ACC team based on a roster. But when you look at adding a guy like Damian Martinez, who has the type of production that he has, then you double back, you get a guy like Simeon Barrow, and then you get the production of a Jalen Alderman at linebacker who led Louisville in tackles or was close to it. Those are the type of additions that you make after you already have a very productive winner portal. That lets you know that these guys are really serious about winning because these are almost luxury additions. And I think it makes their team more deep. And I think it also allows them to play more people. And I think having fresh legs is how you win in November and December.
All right, my number 5. Now, you and I we submitted these together. We didn't know exactly what each other was going to say. My number 5 sticks with the Miami thing. Miami will be a problem with an asterisk. And the asterisk is if they win. And what I mean is we saw what happened with Miami last year at the end of the cycle. Mario became a menace on the recruiting trail. And if Miami wins this year, watch out. 5-star DJ Pickett, 5-star wide receiver Jamie French, 4-star Byron Lewis, Zion Grady, Zayden Walker, all these guys, they could be in Miami's class. I'm not saying that they will, but if Miami wins, look at them sitting at number 17 right now. If they win, I could see them making another run at a top 3 class come National Signing Day. So you and I both think something's brewing in Miami. Now, the season will ultimately determine how far they go in recruiting, but keep an eye on the Canes. All right, moving on to number 4. Your number 4 was a comparison. Now you're gonna flash back to the 2024 cycle, and Cam Coleman and Jeremiah Smith remind you of AJ Green, Julio Jones 2.0.
Yeah, absolutely. When I look at these guys and what they were able to do in the spring, and not just what they did in the spring games, but what they did all spring long. I've got guys at Ohio State and I've got guys at Auburn. I was getting practice clips, and the clips that were in practice that aren't public are even more insane than what everybody's seeing. Cam Coleman was a guy from day one. He's the AJ Green of that comparison. He's the guy who has the insane catch radius. He runs a lot better than what people give him credit for. And when he catches the ball, he doesn't get caught from behind. The Julio Jones portion of that, Jeremiah Smith. He's probably one of the most physically imposing, not just height-wise, but also with the wide shoulders, the great build. He reminds you of that robotic type android of Julio Jones, which he was. He was a freak of nature. So I think these 2 guys are going to make college football very exciting, and they're going to have an immediate impact.
Dukes, I have a feeling that this entire wide receiver class from the 2024 cycle, we're going to be doing case studies on this 5-10 years down the road, just looking at how unbelievable that 2024 wide receiver class was.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, my number 4. It's a hot summer in Texas. Now, I'm talking about Texas trending for elite recruits right now, trending for Dakorien Moore coming out of the weekend. He's going to decide in July. So is 5-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi, and I like Texas there. 5-star wide receiver Jamie French is going to make a summer decision. I like Texas there. Five-star wide receiver Khalil Lockett is a guy that's going to make a summer decision. He's an in-state player. Man, I like Texas there. So borderline five-star linebacker Riley Pettichon, who's number 38 in the country, he's going to make it summer. He's trending to Texas at 90% right now. So if you look at the chessboard and you look a few moves ahead, Texas currently sitting at number 12 in the country in the On3 industry rankings, but they only have 7 commits. The teams in the top 3 right now have 11 or 12. Each team in the top 3 has either 11 or 12 commits right now. So once this evens out, watch out. Texas could be top 3, maybe even pushing for a number 1 class. Dare I say, we'll get to that in a minute, but it's going to be a hot summer in Texas. I guarantee it. All right. Duke's number 3 is Colorado. And this is a good one for the offseason. Colorado is the most polarizing team in college football.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you say something good about Colorado, you're going to get a lot of responses. If you say something bad about Colorado, you're going to get a lot of responses. It's just for whatever reason, when it comes to recruiting, the transfer portal, it doesn't matter. There are going to be differing opinions, and they are the most polarizing. And I would probably say when it comes to entertainment on Twitter, it's phenomenal to see guys go back and forth about Colorado, the Buffaloes, Coach Prime, Shador. It's like every other day you're getting something media worthy out of Boulder. And I learned that right now it's not just about Colorado fans. It's about Colorado detractors as well because they have plenty of them. So I think I learned this spring that Colorado is 1,000% the most polarizing college football team in the nation.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, we get it on this channel, no matter what you say, good or bad. And I've kind of noticed that, right? Say Alabama, even when Nick Saban was there, when Alabama landed a 5-star commitment, Alabama fans really cared about that. The rest of the country, they didn't really care about it. Colorado lands a 3-star, they land a 4-star, they land a 5-star. Not only do Colorado fans care about it one way or another, fans from coast to coast want to check out and see what Colorado's doing. They're commenting on what Colorado's doing. They are one of the most polarizing, if not the most polarizing team in the country right now. And my number 3, kind of along those lines, Colorado landing Juju Lewis would make a statement. And I think it makes a statement on 2 levels, right? One, it shows that Deion Sanders is truly a threat to land any high school recruit in the country. We know he landed Travis Hunter, but we want to see him land another top 5-star. And, obviously Jordan Seaton last year as well. But I think it also shows one thing that's even more important than that. It shows a commitment to staying. It kind of quiets the noise. Hey, if you go out and you land the number 2 quarterback in the country, it shows not only that you are thinking ahead, you might be thinking 2-3 years ahead into what this roster is going to look like. And now you can start building that high school class around a Juju Lewis. Now, I know Colorado fans, they build, I know, they build in the transfer portal. But look, why can't you have both? Why can't you build at the high school level and build in the transfer portal? That's what great teams do. I think landing Juju Lewis, especially if he's ready to shut this thing down at the end of July or June, when he's done making official visits, I think he could go a long way for Colorado. All right, let's move on to your number 2, and it's a doozy. Hugh Freeze really doesn't care what you think about the QB position.
Hugh Freeze. So there was a viral meme or a viral of YouTube video years ago where they said the Honey Badgers just don't give a you know what. That's Hugh Freeze. No matter what people say about Peyton Thorne, he said that I'm not spending. I didn't see anything in the portal that wanted me, that made me want to spend $1 million. He didn't want to do it. And he was unapologetic about not doing it and doubled down and saying he feels like Peyton Thorne has enough. Now, this is the same Peyton Thorne that had multiple games where he threw for less than 100 yards last year, which is almost impossible to win at a championship level with a quarterback with that poor production. But Hugh Freeze says, hey, like the offense that's going to be here this year, whether I call it and I take suggestions from Derek Nix or Derek Nix call, it doesn't matter. Peyton Thorne is going to be better, and he's better, and we feel like we're going to get more, regardless of what any Auburn fan says or anybody in the country says. We're doubling down on the fact that we're going to stay with Peyton Thorne, and right now he's our guy, and he's unapologetic about it. And I loved his transparency by saying that, yeah, we heard you. Yeah, we heard everything you said. We didn't make people shy away from it, but it is what it is, brother.
I appreciate it too. I think what he said was a glimpse into conversations that are being had by coaching staffs all across the country right now. They have to think about value. You can't just spend endlessly. Nobody in the country can do that right now. And I think Hugh Freeze kind of gave us a glimpse behind the curtain of how things are going right now in college football offices. All right.
Absolutely.
Number two for me was the second season of quarterback recruiting is coming. Now, I don't want to put anybody on flip watch right now. I'm not even trying to be controversial here, but there are some moves that will be made in the next couple months that are going to shake up the QB board around the country. I'll give you a few examples of what could trigger some movement. Keelan Russell, one of the hottest quarterbacks. He's committed to SMU, but he is a major domino. Alabama, Oregon, Ole Miss, Florida, they're all chasing Keelan Russell and trying to flip him from SMU. Obviously, Juju Lewis is a big one. Even if he sticks to USC, that means what does Auburn turn to? What about Colorado? What about Alabama? Does KJ Lacey end up at Texas? That's a big question mark. Can UF flip FSU quarterback commit Tramel Jones? And if that happens, does FSU go after Michigan quarterback commit Carter Smith? What about Deuce Knight? Does he stick to Notre Dame or does Lane Kiffin flip? And we don't even want to mention right now Bryce Underwood. I'm not even going to mention Bryce Underwood right now, but obviously that would be a big one. You get the picture. The second round of QB recruiting is coming. That's what I learned. All right, let's move on to number one. And, when I first read your number one, I wasn't sure if it deserved the number one spot, but thinking about it more, it is one of the things that I definitely learned this spring, and that is UCF can recruit.
Right now, when you look at recruiting rankings in the Big 12, UCF is far and away the best school right now recruiting in the Big 12. And now we're seeing what happens when you utilize the portal the right way. Going to get Ja'Cory Brown from Miami was a huge move for Gus Malzahn, not just because you got another quarterback who has quality film after what he did last year, but you got a guy that fits your system, and that's something that when Gus left Auburn, there was always talk of did he have the right trigger man? So then you go and get KJ Jefferson after you come back from John Rice Plumlee, and you say, okay, now we're starting to see the consistency needed in order to run that offense. Then you double down or triple down with a Ja'Cory Brown. That's huge. Penny Boone, the production that he had, now that backfield becomes one of the best in the country. And not even to mention guys like Ajayi Hall, who you get as a walk-on with all of the physical tools that he was blessed with. I think UCF had a great portal, and it's becoming a destination school in Florida.
Yeah, they really redid that roster, and they look like a team that you do not want to compete with right now on the recruiting trail. Now, my number one is that the number one class in America is truly up for grabs. Right now, Ohio State, LSU, USC. That's your top three in the On3 industry team rankings. But outside the top five right now, I'm watching Georgia. I'm watching Texas. I'm watching Alabama, Auburn. I think Miami is a team that deserves some votes for potentially finishing number one at the end. Maybe Oregon if a lot of things go right. I just don't think right now that we can pencil Ohio State to finish number one like we could a year ago this time with Georgia. Right now, last year with Georgia, we felt really good about them finishing number one. Now, I do love Ohio State's class. I love the urgency that they're recruiting with right now. They by far have the number one class in America, but there's a lot that's going to shake out this summer. And I think right now, the number one class in America is truly up for grabs.
Agreed.
All right. So there you go, Philip. I think we should do this periodically. You and I, we both have different perspectives on things. I'm in Nashville. You're in Georgia. We're all seeing it differently, but it was really fun to kind of sit over and think about some of the things that we've learned in the last couple months.
Man, Josh, I can't wait, man. Next time you let me know. I'm here.
Hey, we might have to break down after each weekend, in June when they have the big official visit weekends, we could sit down and do what we learned each weekend.
Man, I think that's an awesome idea because I think fluid is probably the most overused term in what we do, but it's so true. Like every situation is fluid. We're talking about the mindsets of 17 and 18-year-olds who have people throwing gobs of NIL money and potentially marketing contracts while they're in high school already. This is a new era, and we have to be up to date. So I'm 1,000% down.
It is. Hey, we just shared what we learned. You guys tap in, comment section below. What did you guys learn this spring about the 2025 recruiting class? Let us know, comment section below. Recruiting is fickle. Sometimes you feel like Superman sitting at number 1 overall with 4 number 1 players at their position committed. And in a moment, it can feel like it's all falling apart. In recruiting, though, the reality is usually somewhere in the middle, right? No team is Superman and incapable of taking a decommitment gut punch. And when a recruit does decommit, the sky really isn't falling. See, LSU, they lost a commitment from 5-star wide receiver Dakorien Moore last Thursday. I got Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger on this video to break down why he decommitted and where the Tigers turn next to fill a spot at wide receiver. But first, hit subscribe to the greatest recruiting channel on YouTube. All right, let's bring on Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger. Shea, why did wide receiver Dakorien Moore decommit from his quote-unquote dream school?
I think this is one thing that a lot of LSU fans who are being reasonable about it thought could happen at some point, because he was saying, I'm locked in, all of these things. But let's go back to when he committed in August. It was a shock, right? Texas was considered the team to beat. And a few days after Colin Simmons and Caden Durham split between LSU and Texas, Dakorien Moore announces he picks LSU. You talk about gut punches. It is one. He's the best receiver in this class, without a doubt. That's why he's ranked number 1. But the other side of the coin here is LSU never struggles at receiver. That's one position. They will always churn guys out, including 2 first-round picks this year. Then you look forward into this class. They've been on a lot of guys beyond Dakorien Moore and have Teron Francis, the number 1 receiver in Louisiana, already committed. So for Moore, I think it came down to just, hey, he took a wave of visits recently, Texas, Ohio State. Again, even though he was saying he was fully committed, he dropped like a new top 4. We saw this coming. For LSU fans, I think that the good news, the silver lining is this happens now and not, the night before signing day.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And then the obvious question, because I've been reading the message boards on the Bengal Tiger, and here it comes. Is there any reason to be concerned that Bryce Underwood, the 5-star quarterback, the number 1 quarterback in America, could be looking around? Or do you feel that he is still locked in with his commitment to LSU?
I feel no different about his commitment and the strength of it being locked in and not wavering. And they're not really the same. I say it all the time. Watch what they do, not what they say. Dakorien Moore saying he was 100% locked into LSU, but again, was dropping a top 4 teams when he was committed, was visiting Ohio State and Texas multiple times. Bryce Underwood committed in January, never visited another school since, has been back to LSU for both their major weekends in terms of recruiting, was at the spring game, and has not said anything about taking visits elsewhere beyond that he won't do it and that he's locked in on LSU. So I consider this to be very, very different ends of the spectrum. This has nothing to do with Bryce Underwood, who is firmly locked in on LSU.
Okay. I agree with you. That makes me feel a lot better about Bryce Underwood, as you know, Shea, and so does all the fans on the Bengal Tiger know. I was the first to put the prediction in for LSU to land Bryce Underwood. Based on what you're saying, what I'm hearing behind the scenes, I feel great about my pick for Bryce Underwood and LSU still. Now let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit more about the wide receiver position now that we know Bryce Underwood is locked in. Does the board change that much now that Dakorien Moore is gone? Because we know that LSU is still recruiting other wide receivers. It's not like you sign 1 or 2 wide receivers in a class. Here, we'll look at some of the top targets. You got Khalil Lockett, Jamie French, CJ Wiley, Derek Meadows. Shea, kind of talk me through this list. Who do we feel best about, and who do we feel like LSU has work to do with?
Yeah, look, these are 4 guys that have been really consistently recruited by LSU. Derek Meadows is a guy that has kind of popped up late, setting a visit when he's already had a number of others planned. But those are 4 big names, right, that they have been recruiting, that they will have unofficial visits. And guys like Wiley, who's an LSU legacy, Lockett, who's out of East Texas, and then Jamie French, a one-time Bama commit, all visited campus multiple times. So they're in deep into those recruitments, and that's why they got these official visits. But you hit the nail on the head, Josh. They were not turning around and saying, okay, without Dakorien Moore, let's build a receiver board. They'll still push for Dakorien Moore. I won't be shocked if Dakorien Moore makes an official visit to LSU at some point down the line. But when we turn the focus to, okay, who else is still out there beyond Moore, those are the 4 guys I would look at. I think just because of location and really connections, guys like Lockett coming out of East Texas and then Wiley, who's an LSU legacy, are two that I would put up there as having a very good shot with. Jamie French has been committed to Bama. He's named a couple different leaders at different times, but one consistent thing has been LSU's been in that top group. And then Meadows being a West Coast, she doesn't land a ton of them, but really talented coming out of Gorman. We'll see how they go with him. So I would first just think that Khalil Lockett, C.J. Wiley, Jamie French, those ones I'm really watching, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
All right. Very level-headed approach. We appreciate that, Shay. Now, LSU fans, talk to me. How do we bounce back from losing Dakorien Moore? Let me know. Comment section below. Is it going to be Khalil Lockett, Jamie French, C.J. Wiley, Derek Meadows? Who do you think LSU rebounds with and signs at wide receiver? Comment section below. The Horns are coming. It's about to get real hot in Texas this summer, and I'm talking about on the recruiting trail. Big news last week. The number one wide receiver in America is back on the market. Five-star Dakorien Moore decommitted from LSU on Thursday, and we're going to find out if Texas is now the favorite to land him. I got Justin Wells from Inside Texas on this video. We're going to break it all down. But first, take a second to hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel, the best recruiting channel on YouTube. Hit subscribe. Thank you. All right, let's bring on Justin Wells from Inside Texas. Justin, we're here. Duncanville wide receiver Dakorien Moore is officially back on the market after his decommitment from LSU. You've been on this show a couple times in the past 6 weeks, essentially saying that this would happen. A lot of fans in the comment section didn't believe you, but now it has. What are your sources saying in regards to where the Horns stand?
Yeah, I think right now it's a Texas-Oregon battle. And he's going to give Ohio State a chance. He's going to take that official in a couple weeks to Columbus. But I feel like this is going to come down to Texas and Oregon ultimately. And you have to feel good if you're Texas. 2 months ago when we started, mentioning this and writing this in Inside Texas, it was with the caveat that he was going to wind up in Austin. And there's just so many things, so many factors, fact patterns that point towards Austin. And so I think that's why Texas is in a great spot. They still got to close it on the official visit. They're going to get it in mid-June. And then Oregon will get that last official on June 21st. Obviously, them hiring Rashad Samples, Dakorien Moore's head coach,
Right.
Reginald Samples, that's his son, came from Arizona State, came from SMU, actually started coaching a little bit at Texas in the mid-2010s. And so it's going to come down to those two. But listen, Texas, this has Texas written all over it. He's been a big Horns fan for the longest time. He's been in Austin a ton of times. He has family in Austin. He has a pipeline from Duncanville to Austin. He has an edge player at Texas named Colin Simmons that is recruiting him maybe as hard as anybody. And they're looking at one of the best potential wide receiver hauls in the class of 2025. They're in a great spot with Moore. They're in an even better spot with Jamie French, looking solid with Khalil Lockett. Moore could be the cherry on the top of what could potentially be a top 5 or even a number 1 class.
And also, you touched on it. He's at Duncanville High School. We know that Texas has been intrigued by Keelan Russell, the quarterback there. Do you think that this decommitment from Dakorien Moore could also set the dominoes falling where they also take Keelan Russell, maybe not even to ensure that Dakorien Moore is coming, but because they've already been interested in, hey, now that Moore's back on the market, maybe now is the time to move on Russell?
I think that's a little early. I still think there's a lot of stuff to play out. Keelan still has a lot of trips he wants to take, and his stock is just continually rising. I mean, this is a guy he's getting more and more attention each week, and for good reason. Keelan is a tremendous passer, and I think Texas is going to keep doing what they've been doing, just monitoring him, staying close to him, building that relationship. Is there a tie with Dakorien Moore? There might be a little bit of lag there, but I think overall Keelan's his own man, and I think when it's all said and done, he's going to have his recruitment is going to be really big and really important. I don't think he's going to wind up sticking with SMU. I think he's going to have a number of big schools that he can choose from. Texas is going to keep him there. Now, KJ Lacey, if he keeps taking visits, then I can see it get a little bit more interesting. But Lacey's set for his official visit in June. He's still locked in. And I think right now Texas is going to just keep it in a holding pattern. Just stay close to Keelan. Make sure that they have that connection. They have that relationship. They have such a great foundation in Duncanville High School already. They got 3 guys on the roster. They got a handful of others they're in the mix for. some offers from the young 2026s and 27s. I mean, that pipeline was built there for a reason. And so I think Keelan's going to wind up being his own recruitment in and of itself. And KJ Lacey, it's going to depend on how he handles the next 6 months before signing day. Right now, it feels like, Lacey's going to wind up in this class, but Keelan is climbing, and people need to pay attention.
Yeah, we talked about the Alabama offer about 3 weeks ago. Last week, it was the Oregon Ducks that offered Keelan Russell. So those offers, they're still rolling in. You mentioned kind of where Texas goes next at the wide receiver board. We know Dakorien Moore is back on the market now. We also know that Jamie French, I don't want to say he's trending to Texas, but in some people's opinion, Texas is the favorite to land him. So now that the wide receiver board's coming into focus, do they have room for Khalil Lockett? And do you think that all three would want to be on the same team together?
I do think all three would want to be on the same team together. I think Texas leads for Jamie French right now. I'm even considering an RPM. You may see something like that later in the week. Be sure and check out the On3 recruiting videos and Inside Texas, because I'm getting closer and closer with that one. Moore's been the top of the list since Chris Jackson got the job. Moore's been the number one guy for 2025 for a while. And, Khalil Lockett caught up with the staff a few days ago, and Khalil loves the idea of playing with fellow 5-stars. If Texas were able to get 3 5-stars in this 2025 haul and Moore, French, and Lockett, that reminds me of the class of 2000 when Texas brought in Roy Williams and B.J. Johnson and Sloan Thomas. I mean, it's on par with those guys. And so that's the thing. All these guys hung out with each other on April 6th when they took an unofficial to Texas. Right. And they all left saying a lot of the same things, all on the same page. And the idea that they get to play in this offense for a team that's trajectory is going nowhere but up, and catching passes potentially from Arch Manning at the next level, all signs point to Texas looks in great shape to land all three of those guys.
Yeah. And Texas is in great shape for more than just a couple wide receivers here. We look at who's trending. You got offensive tackle Michael Fasusi. He's a 5-star from Louisville, Texas, number 4 offensive tackle in the country. Also, linebacker Riley Pettijohn, sitting right outside 5-star status at number 38 overall in the country. He goes 6'3", 200, and he's trending at 93% to Texas. Now, I said at the top, it could be a hot summer for the Longhorns. Do you think that we got Dakorien Moore potentially making his decision in July, Michael Fasusi making his decision in July, Riley Pettijohn possibly making – could all these guys come together on the Texas commit list in July?
Absolutely. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Pettijohn maybe sped up his timeline a little bit. We weren't expecting Elijah Barnes to go all summer. Mm-hmm. But we weren't expecting him to drop in April either. And I think Texas is in as good a shape with Pettijohn as they were with Barnes. That's the linebacker duo out of Dallas-Fort Worth. Pettijohn, I think, still wants to take his visits for sure. Wants to see USC. I think Ohio State might be on the slate. Texas A&M is still going to get a visit as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if Pettijohn sped up his timeline a little bit. I mean, him and Texas make a lot of sense. That's a match they've been growing and building for the last 6 months to a year. I think Johnny Nansen has made up a lot of ground that Jeff Choate had essentially built. Then when you add Chris Gilbert and you add Jeff Banks and you add the all staff from Steve Sarkisian, right now, Texas and Pettijohn looks really good. And I can see Fasusi and Moore taking it to July. Right. A lot of these guys are going to make their decisions in July and August. They're going to get their spots before the season senior starts because they don't want the distractions. They don't want the hassle. But with Pettijohn, just like Barnes, I wouldn't be surprised if that timeline was sped up just a little bit. It'll be interesting, man. You're right. June's going to be hot. But July, we're talking like Indian summer in Austin. Yeah. It could be cooking, and 5 stars left and right could be dropping, and that's why it's fun to cover it right now in Austin.
Yeah, and July will be hot because of the work that the Texas staff is putting on the trail right now, all the way dating back really a year ago from now, working on some of these 2025 guys. Texas fans, talk to me. How do we feel right now about landing the trio of wide receivers, Khalil Lockett, Dakorien Moore, and Jamie French? Tap in, comment section below. Can the Horns pull this off? Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.